My name is Corzine. I'm a corn and soybean farmer. I grew up on a farm, my dad's farm in central Illinois, just in a little town called Assumption, south of Decatur, not too far from the University of Illinois. Um, the farm that I grew up raised corn and soybeans. We had about 800 acres when my dad was doing it, and before I transitioned out of that, I was up to about 1,400 acres. Most of that, almost all of that, was rented farmland. I still live on the farm and have three. I own one farm and have a couple small family farms that I manage, and I have those custom operated. In 2003, I started along with two other Illinois farmers and a Brazilian consultant. We started a company called South American Soy. A company called South American Soy. It was a limited liability company out of Illinois. The purpose of the company was to attract investments from our fellow farmers here in the state and surrounding states, and to use that capital then to go to Brazil and to purchase farmland, develop that farmland, and operate that. We started the company in 2003. In 2004, we got the company funded with about 1.3 million in U.S. dollars. Went to Brazil, did some research in the meantime on where we wanted to operate, where was the best places to go, what our capabilities were, etc. We ended up in the state of Tocantins. Tocantins in Brazil is considered to be in the northern part of the country. It's a frontier area. Actually, this Tocantins is a fairly new state. I think it was formed in 1984 from what was the larger state of Goiás, where the capital of Brasilia is. They split the northern half of that state off and made it Tocantins. So when we started in 2004, that area was fairly undeveloped. Primary cattle, a lot of just undeveloped cerrado. Cerrado is a term for just undeveloped land, mostly brush lands. We began then developing that and actually then planted our first crop on our own farm, about 90 hectares, I guess, in 2004. And then, ever since then, up until now, we have been farming those farms, developing those farms. We had to get permits to clear out the brush on the farms. And that was a long process, and so it was a 5-6 year process to really get those farms totally into production in terms of just getting the farms prepared. So in terms of where our farms are located, the farms that we own, which is about 1,460 hectares, which translates to around, I think, 3,500 acres. Those farms are all located in the state of Tocantins, as I said, and they're actually in the municipality, which is like a county-size governing body. They're in the municipality of Araguaçu, which is a native name. That's located, Araguaçu municipality is located in the far southwest corner of the state of Tocantins and actually borders on the state of Goiás. These three farms are in that area, but over the course of our experiences in Brazil, we actually have farmed in other places as well. The farms in Araguaçu, in terms of where they are geographically, in terms of latitude, we're at southern latitude of 12 degrees, about 12 degrees 40 seconds for our own farms. We also, though, we went north of there and rented some land for a few years, and we were up actually above 10 degrees latitude on that farm. We also farmed to the south of where we were, down into Goiás, two different farms in Goiás. We were clear down south and west of Brasilia, around 17 degrees, near a town of Catalão for 1 year. And we also actually have a long-term rental on a farm in northern Goiás, about 100 kilometers south of our farms. That farm is located, and that we call that farm Cristo Rei, Fazenda Cristo Rei, and that farm is located a little above 13 degrees latitude. So we've got a spread, have farmed in a spread from 10 to 17. Our farms are located at around 12 degrees. The question then, I guess, becomes what's different there. Well, the one thing is the rainfall. The rainfall is considerably different in Brazil, in this region of Brazil, than it is in the United States, where I'm used to operating here in Illinois. Um, in the region that we're in, it's a rainforest environment, tropical rainforest, subtropical. It has a wet season that starts. It varies by location, but generally starts sometime in around September, October, and then the rains really pick up starting in November and December and carry through until March to April, and then you go back into the dry season. And from April through, or say May through August, it's very, very dry. Some parts of this region where we're at, and the farm, actually where our farms that we own are located, we receive almost no rainfall during this period. Extremely warm as well. You're talking about a region that has temperatures that average mostly in the 90-degree range for your daily highs. The winter is actually warmer than the summer because the winter has fewer clouds because there's no rain. So you end up with more sun hours per day on average. So you end up with warmer average temperatures. So it's a very hot environment. It doesn't cool off much. You only get down to around 70 degrees Fahrenheit or somewhere in that neighborhood. If you get into the 60s, you'll see people with their coats on for sure, because it's a pretty cool temperature for this region. Of course, these temperatures vary. As you go south, you can get cooler a little bit, but what really changes it is the altitude. We are located at around 300 to 330 330 meters at these most of these farms. The farm in Catalão that we had the one year was on somewhat of a plateau, and it was a little over 900 meters. So when you get into the higher areas, you have a lot cooler temperatures. Those areas are in Brazil. There's a lot of these areas like this, and those areas are what they use for more corn production, because corn likes the cooler temperatures. Soybeans can handle the hotter temperatures, and also the seed production for soybeans and for corn is good in these areas because, again, it's cooler and easier to produce quality seed than it is at the lower altitudes. On average, most of these areas are receiving, let's say at our farm that we own, we're receiving around 1,300 to 1,600 millimeters per year. Again, concentrated mostly between August and April, and the bulk of that really comes, November through February. That's when you really get the bulk of of that rainfall coming down. That changes from farm to farm. The timing of the start of the rainfall changes from the different areas as well. The location and logistics into these farms, it's pretty variable. Starting with the farms we own at Nova Fronteira in Araguaçu, those farms are about 43 kilometers to the city, and that's 43 kilometers of a clay, very undeveloped road. Of course, when you get these really, really wet months, that road gets bad, cut up by running water. This area is not flat. It's got a lot of roll to it. So when the road that goes out there goes up and down, not high hills, not mountains, but enough that when you get those high rainfalls and you're dealing with these clay soils, they cut ruts out of those roads, and they become extremely unpleasant to drive on and difficult to get your inputs in through and your soybeans out through. Because it is clay soils in the region we're in, these roads typically stay passable. It's not a pleasant way to get through, but typically they have a bottom, and trucks don't get stuck on them very often. They do get stuck occasionally. There are some what we call creeks here in Illinois, small rivers, very, very small rivers that we have to cross. There are bigger rivers too, but we only mainly have to cross some smaller ones to get out to the paved road. Those are usually some kind of a bridge. That's usually a wood bridge, usually trees actually that have been put down, big heavy trees. And sometimes those give out, especially when you're crossing them with big truckloads full of soybeans. So that's another challenge. The delivery for this farm, for our Nova Fronteira farm, these soybeans typically go to a local buyer. We have to probably deliver them. We're going to have to get them around 120 kilometers to the buyer. They don't typically pick it up at the farm, mostly because of the road conditions that I've described. If we were in a better location where they could get larger trucks in without a lot of damage to the truck and a lot of problems for the drivers, etc., we probably could get those beans picked up. At our farm in Goiás, we actually have a storage system at the Cristo Rey farm, and we have been able to get those beans picked up without having to deliver them. The beans from Nova Fronteira from the Araguaçu farm, again, we're in Tocantins. There is a new railroad project that's almost done or close to done, or parts of it are done. It's a little confusing, but there's a port or a rail line that runs all the way from the port at the top of the country up in the state of Maranhão at the city of São Luís. It's a port. Right now there's a rail line. There's a couple different rail lines that get you into that. You have to take one government rail line and then one private. Eventually there's going to be theoretically there's going to be a private, this government rail line is going to go all the way up to the mouth of the Amazon at the city of Belém. Then going south, that rail line connects down to Anápolis, which is a city close to Brasilia in the center of the country. And from there, there's going to be spurs that will connect to other existing rail lines so that you can get to the ports in the south as well. So our beans in Tocantins go north. They go into some of these delivery points, probably to a company like a Bunge, sometimes to a local biodiesel, a large biodiesel company in Brazil called Granol. We've also sold to Cargill and to ADM and others. Most of the multinationals are going to be shipping the beans to the north. They'll take them to some point where the rail line is functioning and put them on the rail and take them out to the port in the north and then export them out. These beans typically are headed for China. I mean, they can go anywhere, but in general, the beans out of a big bulk of the beans out of Brazil are being exported to China. Then, if our beans are sold to a company like Granol, they go south eventually. We deliver them to a truck facility about 120 kilometers from our farm there in Araguaçu. They haul them south, then down by Brasilia, and then they process those into biodiesel. We're quite a distance from the port. That translates into quite a bit of even though we have freight costs to get them to our to get them from Nova Fronteira to get them delivered. It can cost us $2.50 a bushel, maybe $3. Pretty high freight costs. But there's actually more cost than that, obviously, because then the rest of it is coming out of the price they're offering us, because then they have to get the buyers are responsible for getting the beans to the port. So the location, lack of logistics, poor roads, etc., those are all major problems for farming in this region. It raises our cost of production, our fertilizer costs, our seed costs, our chemical costs. It raises the fuel costs, which is a major factor. And then once you have your crop, it lowers your price because you have first off, you have more expenses to get the beans to your delivery point, and then your soybean prices are lower as well because of the transport costs. So Brazil is trying to remedy that, but it's a huge problem, and Brazil's not focused extremely well on it, and it's going to take a long time to really get it corrected. But there's a lot of offsetting factors that have made agriculture in Brazil an interesting place to invest.